So this is something that's probably going to piss off a lot of people. So if you would leave a like, that would be great, as I think I'm going to get a lot of dislikes on this video, to be honest. And if you can just appreciate what I'm saying, or at least find it entertaining, or even agree, please leave a like, as again, I think I'm going to get quite a lot of dislikes on this video. But with that being said, I honestly thought that Persona 3 was a bit overhyped and a bit overrated. Like, I always see a lot of people hating on Persona 5, and I don't really understand the hate for Persona 5. Like, yeah, it's a flawed game, but I don't think it's the bad game that Persona fans and people on Reddit make it out to be. And yeah, I played Persona 5 first, so I was a bit biased coming from Persona 5 to Persona 3. But it's like, I go from this heavy story-based game, and then come into Persona 3, and the first, like, I mean, aside from the first maybe like 30 minutes of the game, but aside from that, the first like 40, 50 hours of the game is you just dicking around with your friends and doing a whole lot of nothing, basically. Like, the story is basically just, oh, we gotta take down these 12 shadows to stop the end of the world. And then you learn some backstory of the characters. And that's it for 40, 50 hours. And had it not been for Persona 5, and hearing one of my friends tell me that he watched the anime for Persona 3 and that he thought it was like probably the best story of all the Personas, I probably would have dropped the game. And don't get me wrong, the back half of the game is actually really good, but I don't really think it was worth playing through, again, 40 to 50 hours of just straight boringness just to get to it. Like, yeah, you learn of the evil stuff that was going on with Mitsuru's relatives and some of Yukari's backstory with how her dad died from trying to stop that from happening, and just getting to know some of the characters more. But that's something that could have been done in like the first like 5 hours of the game, to be honest. Not something that was stretched out to the first like 30 to 40 hours of the game. And I don't know, like, I feel like either a lot of that time should have been cut down so they could progress the story, or they should have at least dug more into some of the characters, get to know them better, or even just add like a little bit more to like the plot early on. And again, I'm not saying that the characters didn't have any like story or anything like that to them. It's just I feel like it was a little bit underdeveloped. At least early on it was. And yeah, again, they did talk about some of their backgrounds and stories and stuff. It's just I think there could have been more. For example, Sonata talks about his sister dying in a fire at his orphanage. Why not show a cutscene of this? That would probably help us feel a lot more involved with the story if you just showed us this rather than not hearing about it. I also think Fuuka's character is severely underdeveloped in this game. She basically turns into a background character after her arc, which is not too different from Haru in Persona 5. I also don't really understand why it showed the cutscene of the redhead girl talking to Haru about her moving away and stuff, when she had pretty much been a dead character since the end of Haru's arc, or Fuuka's arc. And coming from Persona 5, it's like you have palaces, they all have these like different crazy fun designs, and then you come to Persona 3, and it's just basically mementos, and that's it. Persona 5 and the Mementos at least have these, what are essentially mini palace bosses that also have stories to them. In Persona 3, it's just missing persons, and you don't really know anything about them. And they don't even have, like, different fun designs for the shadows when you see them in Tartarus. They're just like a giant, like, puddle of sludge, and that's all you see. Like, yeah, obviously when you actually, like, start fighting them, they turn into something else, but outside of that, it's just a bunch of, like, sludge, and it's just boring. And Tartarus only changes like 3 total times, as other than that, the map is essentially the same thing the entire time. Plus, I think like the fighting in Tartarus probably is a good like 50% of the game, honestly. So you add that on top of how like the first half of the game is like really fucking boring. It just makes for a game that it's not really all that appealing to me, to be honest. And again, I'm sure I love the anime, as the story itself is actually pretty good. It's just that like this entire like first half of the game is like this giant Naruto filler arc that's just not all that interesting to me. Now then the game does start to get interesting around October, which is again around halfway through the game, which I would imagine most people probably do not get to this point in the game. Here you get a lot of like interesting story between Aragaki and Ken, who Ken was kind of just there like up until this point. You don't really like learn too much about him from what I remember. Again, like first 40 hours of this game were really boring, and it kind of just sucked me out. So I'll admit, like, my attention span was not very great, like, up until around this point. but still, it felt like there was not really much to him until now. But this arc itself is actually pretty good, so I'll give the game that. Which also, I'm not saying that this is a bad game either. I'm just saying I think it was a little bit overhyped, and that Persona fans give it a little bit too much credit for a game that the back half of it was really good, but again, the first half just, ugh. But getting back on track, the storyline with Aragaki was actually pretty interesting. How, he lost control of his persona, and then because of that, he ended up killing someone on accident, and then he feels really guilty about this, and basically has been drugging himself up ever since. I just would have liked to see more cutscenes of this, honestly. Yeah, they showed some of the past, but they don't actually show the incident that happens of Aragaki accidentally killing one of his friends. And that's something I think that would have really helped this, as you're kind of just being told the story by everyone, and it kind of just feels like hanging out with some old friends that you haven't seen in a couple years, and they just keep talking about things that happened with them in the last couple of years that you weren't a part of, and it just feels kind of awkward because you're not really you weren't there to experience it. And I think that the game would have benefited from showing a cutscene of what happened with Aragaki and his friend. Yeah, you're getting told the story. It's just, it doesn't feel as impactful as it would have if you actually get it shown to you. And then one other issue I have with this, and I've not really seen anyone talk about it before, and maybe it's just the game itself just being a little awkward, since maybe in the anime it's portrayed better, but Takaya shoots Aragaki, who saves Ken, which, yeah, I don't have an issue with that. But it's okay, do you only have one bullet in your gun? Because he shoots and kills Aragaki, and his target was Ken because he thought he was the navigator. But he's just I'm just gonna sit here and watch. And then the group shows up, and he still does nothing, and then he just walks away. It's what are you doing, dude? If you actually wanted to get rid of him, you literally could have just bam, there's Aragaki dead. Okay, well, now you just see Ken over here just crying over it. It's okay, well, bam, dead. It would have been that easy for him to just take them both out, basically. Instead, he just stands there like a fucking idiot, and it's just kind of awkward to watch, in my opinion. They don't really show him standing there just watching, but that's what's happening. He shoots Aragaki, then it shows cutscenes of Ken crying and being sad about it, and it's you literally could just shoot Ken right now. And yeah, ultimately that wouldn't achieve his goal because Ken's not the actual navigator, but it doesn't get rid of the fact that with the information that he has, he should have just shot them both. And this is an issue that happens later on as well, and I just don't really understand it. I also just find it interesting that at the end of this arc, Ken kind of realizes that he has a lot to live for other than just revenge, and then he's just oh, anyways, background character time. I don't know, I just thought it was a little weird. Now, here's another controversial thing that a lot of people are probably going to start hating on me in the comments about, but the Junpei romance with Chidori was really forced and felt kind of crappy to me. It just starts with Junpei, basically, hardcore flirting with her, and she's not having it. She's just basically, fuck off. But he just keeps going at it, and it doesn't even really lead to anything, other than Chidori just manipulating him, and then trying to get him and his friends killed. So far, there's not really any romance at all. It's just her being shitty and not really wanting anything to do with him. And honestly, Junpei being kind of shitty, because it's she rejected you multiple times, and you're still going after her. That kind of sounds like sexual harassment to me. But even after that, Junpei still visits her in the hospital and is still all horny and thirsty over her, and it's I don't get it. Yeah, he's a teenage boy and he's horny and thirsty over her. But she literally tried to kill you, so it kind of makes it a little bit hard to believe that he'd still be trying to pursue her like that. And then even then, when he's visiting her in the hospital and he's trying to talk to her and stuff, it's just her just grunting back at him or not saying anything, and it's what kind of fucking romance is that? That's just shitty. And yeah, she draws a picture of him and starts to grow feelings for him and stuff like that because, he's visiting her in the hospital and he's the only one that cares about her and blah, blah, blah. But still, majority of it's just her saying 3 or 4 lines like a fucking caveman, and then him just being horny over her. And, it eventually gets a little bit better with nah, what the fuck am I saying? I just don't think it gets better because she gets mad at Junpei because, he has no direction that he wants to go with his life, and she gets mad about that. Doesn't really explain that or say anything. She just says, "Don't see me anymore." It's use your fucking words. Just say that you're mad at him. Say that you're annoyed at him. And I don't know. I mean, I get that she's like an orphan and stuff like that and went through like a crappy life and stuff, but I don't know. It's like, it just feels weird. And then you go to the full moon of the battle where Takaya shoots Junpei, which, again, going back to the other thing, do you only have one bullet in your gun? Because he shoots Junpei, and then Chidori, like, revives him, which would end her life. And then, you know, what would happen in real life is that, like, he would kill Junpei, she revives him, and then you know what happens? Oh, well, that's cool. Bam, you're dead again anyways. Like, what? Instead, he just sits there and just watches this all happen, and he's like, oh, okay. And then he just walks away. Like, dude, just kill him again. And then there's like an exposition dump of Chidori and Junpei in the hospital, and I don't know. It was better. I'll give it that. It's just, I don't know. I don't think it saves the fact that up until then it had really just shown like Junpei trying to talk to her, and then she just acts like a caveman, says like 2 or 3 words. And when she does talk to him, she's just kind of an asshole.
I brought you a new sketchbook. I thought your old one might be getting full.
I don't remember asking you to do that, Junpei.
And they have a romance out of that. Like, I understand why she likes Junpei, because no one else really gives a fuck about her, and he cares, mostly because he's horny. But for him, it's really just like, oh, I'm horny over you. And yeah, she goes to, like, she basically gets angry at him, and then he eventually realizes that, like, because, again, she's, like, basically nonverbal and won't, like, talk to him. But he eventually realizes that she got mad at him because he's not taking his life seriously. And he grows a bit from that, but it's like... And I just want to add that Junpei's like, I'm going to take my life more seriously now. And then he's like, I'm going to focus on baseball. It's like, dude, you're about to graduate. It's like if a senior in high school is like, oh, I'm going to join the football team. Like, dude, you're not going to make the team. But anyways, back on the topic of Junpei and the other girl. I don't really see the romance there. Like, I feel like they should have added more, like, development when they were, like, in that hospital. Like, there was the scene of her drawing a picture for Junpei, but I just don't think there was enough development there. I think it had a lot of potential to be good. It's just, yeah, like, again, you got her talking like a caveman, and then him, Junpei, just, like, being horny. Plus, I don't even think Junpei really loved her like he claimed. Like, yeah, I get he's a high schooler and blah, 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 but, like, a month or 2 after she dies... Junpei and his friends go to that sauna pool thing, and they're trying to, like, basically be pervy towards a bunch of girls. And it's like, if you love this girl, shouldn't you not be, like, acting like that if you're all sad and grieving? Like, it just felt kind of weird. Like, I don't think he really loved her. Then I'll say the end of the game was actually really good. I didn't really care for it at first, mostly because of the fact that it just felt weird that the main character just died like a couple like months later instead of just during the climax. But I can kind of see where they were going with it, where they wanted him to like hang on for the last couple months so he can like see his friends again when they actually remembered him. Although they don't really get to see him. Like, he dies when they were like just right before they were like gonna see him. So I don't know, I guess it is kind of like a bittersweet ending. Like, he held on for all this time, but like right before he gets to see them, he dies. Like, I guess I can kind of see what they were going with there. Like, it is pretty sad, and yeah, I guess I'll say the ending itself was actually pretty good. But again, overall, there was just those problems I had with the game, and the fact that the first like half of the game was just boring as fuck. I just don't see this game being like a 9 out of 10 or a perfect 10 out of 10 like everyone else is saying. And I'm even surprised that all these gaming journalists gave it like 9s and 10s out of 10, because you already know, like with most of them, they probably play these games for like 3 or 4 hours, drop it, give it a review, and that's it. So it's like, you'd think that after them playing the first couple hours, they'd be like, this shit is boring as fuck, and would have given it like a 4 or 5 out of 10. But no, it was like 9s and 10s, and I don't know, it just kind of surprised me. I do think there were some pretty major graphical upgrades that were made that were honestly really necessary. But the brightness of the game is just kind of a weird contrast to how dark the story is. I do like that they added the ability to control your party members, as not being able to control your party members is a pretty big reason to why I never wanted to play Persona 3, along with, again, how just outdated the graphics were. And again, I'm not saying this game is awful or shitty. Like, I would say it's a little bit above average, and without all that, like, filler, it's probably a pretty good game. It's just, I can't get past that first half of the game. It's so boring, and it just takes you out of the game, at least in my opinion. I do also think it's worth mentioning that the music in this game is amazing. I honestly like it more than Persona 5. Although, there's like a song or two that's I don't think is all that great. I thought the Burn My Dread song at the end of the game was really annoying. And it just felt kind of like out of place for a final boss soundtrack thing. I don't know. I didn't really care for it. There's also one song at the dorm that's just really annoying. It's like I don't know. It's just hearing it over and over is really fucking annoying. But other than that, I love the music. The intro, honestly, I love. Like, it's probably my favorite intro. I haven't played Persona 4, so it's possible there's better music in that game as well. But just comparing Persona 3 to 5, I like the music more. I also just wanted to add that I don't really understand Takaya's motivation. He says that he's just trying to accept death, and he's not gonna try to fight it. But then he fights for it, like he's fighting against you because you're fighting death, and it doesn't really make any sense to me. Although, I mean, early on it sort of makes sense because he says the reason is that you've been given a power and he doesn't want to lose it, which, you know, I can understand his motivation there. Although it's a little weird though too. It's like he has this power, but like what is he actually doing with this power? Because we're fighting the shadows, but he seems to be on the side of the shadows or neutral towards them. So what is he really doing with that power? I think early on in the game they might have mentioned there was some sort of group that was like taking online requests to like punish people and stuff. But again, that was like really underdeveloped in this game, and I think that actually could have been more interesting if they utilized that more. Because I'm assuming the group that was doing that was the I think they were called Strega. I don't remember, but I don't know. I don't really understand why he wants the Persona so badly. Because again, I'm assuming that they're the Strega, or not Strega, but the online group that's like attacking people or taking requests to attack people or punish them or whatever. But they never really explicitly say that it's them. So you're kind of just having to do some guesswork there. And again, it's like hardly mentioned, so I don't really know. I just think it would have added some depth to this game if they had some conflict early on of the main protagonist group fighting Strega because Strega wants to do their weird online request things. But back on the topic of Takaya, late game, it doesn't really make sense to me why he's fighting the main character because he says to accept death, which is understandable, but he's not really just accepting death. He's like fighting to like see the end of the world, and that's what I don't really understand. Because like once he dies, he's not going to be able to use his persona anymore, so it's like the reason that he wanted to fight was so he could have the power of his persona. But if he's going to die, then he's not going to be able to use his persona anyways, so I just don't really understand his late game motivations. Also, on another note, now this might be just a little picky and whatever, but I'm going to say it. I just think it's a little weird that you like shoot yourself to bring out your persona. I don't know, it just seems kind of goofy to me. It's not really explained why you do it, or if it is, it's like kind of just glossed over. Like I get that they're using evokers to bring out their persona, and I think one of my friends told me it's apparently because they need to have like a near-death experience or something, but again, just shooting yourself is it's a little goofy. And maybe I'm looking a little bit too deep into this, but I just think it's a little weird and goofy. But one positive thing I think about this game is the social links. A lot of them are just fine and alright, but there's a couple ones that are actually pretty good. The Sun social link is like a 10 out of 10. It's perfect. And I thought it was honestly really funny that you have the social link with the businessman Tanaka. I just think it's funny the little like goofy threats that it gives to you at the end of your conversations early on. I do think the social link with Kenji's a little bit overhated. Like, I don't know, I just think it's kind of a goofy, funny, more lighthearted social link. Which, maybe that's why people don't like it, but I don't know, I just thought it was kind of funny. The Hermit social link, I didn't really care for, as I thought she was just really cringy and annoying. But I think the ending was hilarious, and it just makes it worth it.
Oh, don't tell me you got it online. The only ones who were on that server were... Don't tell me. You're Tatsuya? I said all that to you? Oh, no. Wipe that smile off your face, or I'll wipe it off for you with my fists.
And the social links don't come up without their flaws, as I think the Moon one is honestly really not that good. I think it could have been a lot better. It's just that instead of focusing on the trauma that he has to deal with,
it kind of balances two different stories of that and him being scammed slash turning into a scammer. And I don't think it really meshes well. I think if they had focused on him dealing with this drama and opening up to us more throughout his social link, and then eventually coming to a resolution that he needs to cope with this in a healthier way, I think it would have been a lot better. Or maybe if they just cut some of the content where people are mad at him for scamming and come to the resolution of that a little bit faster, then maybe this link would have worked better. And instead, we're just met with an exposition dump at the end, and it just doesn't really work for me. And then the hanged one, I think it's just kind of weird. You're like hanging out with this 9-year-old girl and convincing her to run away from home. The chariot one was also a little weird since you're just telling this dude with a fucked up knee to keep running, in which he's gonna inevitably really fuck up his knee. Also, I know I've had to add in a lot of like stuff ever since I made the original video. I had a lot more like thoughts come in like after I posted, and I was like, oh damn, well these thoughts I think would make the video like a lot better, so that's why I did it. The video was originally 12 minutes long, and I thought the video could be a little bit longer, so I just wanted to add some things, as well as the fact that I think these points were important to make. But let me know how you guys felt about this, as don't really make too many videos that are like this, although I do kind of want to make some more like this in the future. But just let me know if there's something I can improve on. I think it would be a pretty good help for my channel. But what do you guys think? Let me know that in the comments. Please be sure to leave a like, especially if you made it this far, or if you just enjoyed this video in general or agreed with me, as I'm pretty sure a lot of people are going to be angry as fuck and disliking this, so it could really be helpful to my video if you guys would leave a like. It would show it off to more people. Also, please be sure to subscribe if you haven't already.